Hi, everybody. This is the 300th episode of Out of the Trenches podcast. I have guest Dr. Robert Martinez on and Holly Stewart. So thank you so much for joining me today. I'll go ahead and start with introductions. These are two past guests on the Out of the Trenches podcast. And Holly, she is the education specialist at Foldscope Instruments. She has over 10 years of science education experience, both indoor and outdoor classrooms, ranging from grade 3 through 12th grade. She is currently a Teach Better Team ambassador and mentor ambassador and believes that removing barriers, financial, emotional, and physical, and providing equitable access to quality science tools can make a huge difference in how students learn. She's an avid outdoor person and takes her Foldscope with her on hikes and enjoys making new discoveries in the microcosmos. She's excited to help get Foldscopes into the hands of teachers and students so they can experience the joy of discovery as well. And Rob, he is currently the Chief of Human Resources for Antioch Unified School District in California, and his new book, Recipes for Resilience, Nurturing Perseverance in Students and Educators, was recently released and is available on Amazon. He shares messages from his life and lessons learned, and his life's work has focused on helping others live courageous, resilient lives. Welcome to the podcast, both of you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. 300. What an accomplishment. That's
fantastic. Yes. Yeah. No, I really like having these live streams. And here we are at the tail end of the school year. We're wrapping up here in Colorado. And I'm pretty sure for you all in California, probably pretty soon as well, Rob.
9 more days for our school. 9 more days, but nobody's counting.
Yeah. And how about where you're located, Stuart? Are they, Holly, are you also in kind of the midst of
we're in the home stretch, so
yes.
the June, I think whatever that Thursday is, June 6th, I believe, is the last day for kids in our district.
Yeah, so that's why I wanted to have an episode that really focuses on leaning into the future or more into the education, what we're thinking about for next school year, developing your own personal resilience, and then making opportunities out of obstacles. So I know both of you have given me some questions. So we'll start off with you, Holly. So I introduced you about how you're working with Foldscope Instruments. How does that help you build your personal resilience?
Well, honestly, when I think about the company that I'm with, and it doesn't necessarily seem like it would be an intuitive thing when you think about a scientific instruments company, but it's the feeling of community that I get within the group. The company truly is, our mission is all about, equity and access for scientific education and equipment in classrooms. And whether your classroom is an indoor classroom or an outdoor classroom or just wherever you happen to be, that everyone should be able to feel like they are a part of the scientific world, because they are. It's not something that, has a label with it or something like that. It is, everyone is a scientist. And I like the fact that, like I said, the company, the people that I work with, and the schools that I work with, that we're all part of a big family, and we're really there to help support one another and help each other and kind of like build each other up. I think that's really the best way to think about it. Science is sometimes an intimidating field, and it can kind of make you feel like, oh, I just don't know enough. But when you realize that everyone is out there asking questions and trying to find these answers and working together, it really helps to build you up and give you that resiliency to keep trying. And if something doesn't work, try again, and then it's okay. Yeah. So I think that that's really the big thing for me in terms of building my resiliency, is really just leaning on my network of the people within the company and the people that I'm working with.
Yeah, it's so important when you transition from a school like you have done in the past couple of years to, and you're working online, right, to find community.
Yeah. And it's, social media, I know that there are a lot of those negatives that you hear about, but it really can be, when it's used in the right way. it really can be a source to, help you out and bring people together. And that's how I've met so many of the educators that I've worked with. A lot of the people within the Teach Better team, even, we came together through social media and, connecting in that way. So yeah, definitely it helps when you're working from home. I'm like, this is my home, and this is, my coworkers. It's just me,
Yeah.
right? But you can reach out to others online, and it really does help.
So Rob, how about you? So when we're talking about resilience and, you having written a book on recipes for resilience, what strategies have you been finding help you help those in your environment as an HR director, and help the staff to remain calm and focused, grounded, and really when they're doing their work in day-to-day basis?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And Holly, as you were talking about science and all of us, I kind of think of it this way sometimes. On the people side, it's the science of humanity. And right now, quite frankly, we're still all together in realizing impacts from COVID, from our changing lives. And that goes to be said for our educational systems as well. When we look at the challenges, attendance rates for students still climbing back to pre-pandemic levels. Are they even coming to school, or are they selectively not coming to classes? It's a challenge for us and our people. In my district, we have over 2,000 employees, right? So with the many schools we have, with the services that we're providing, we have a lot of different moving parts. And each one of those people, this is kind of when I think about each person, we have our stories, we have our experiences, we have our personal experiences that we're bringing, we have our professional experiences, and we have our real life experiences at the schools, in the lunchrooms, on the school bus. And all of those experiences are, a challenge sometimes right now because it's still different. And we can get so caught up in trying to make things perfect or going back to a place that we remember that it was good. And yet the challenge is facing, what do we do today? What do we do with our students who are here today? What do we do with the significant needs that our students are still feeling today? And so when we think of that, we could either become very overwhelmed and feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough, and I'm not making the changes I need. Or we go through a process of getting recentered and getting back to a calm process where we can impact our students positively with simply a smile, with simply kind words, with simple civility, and that goes for our colleagues, that goes for our parents. It's kind of a return to graciousness, a return to respectfulness. In my book, I do I kind of talk about 8 big things, and relationship building, respect, are part of that, and personal responsibility. And right now, as I work with our employees, a lot of that comes back to your personal responsibility, because you can't change everything. You can't fix something that's out of your control, but you can, again, make a moment better for an employee, for a student, for a parent, for others in your arena. And so that calming level of what's in our locus of control, what can we actually impact, and take charge of that, hold on to that, do something so that when you're doing it, you're bringing a little bit of a lighter load to the person that you're working with. Those are simple things that as humans we can do, and we can go back to our science a little bit, be a variable to change other people's environments, right? If we're approaching things with our own internal civility and our calmness and respectfulness, we're going to make things better for other people, rather than carrying anxieties with us into our workplace, our environments, our classrooms, because our students need so much positive and calming influences. So those are some of the things that we're trying to just engage in conversations. And again, that's not magic you can just sprinkle over schools.
Yeah.
That comes with really supporting our people directly in conversation, in practice, in modeling, in working with them to know that they can make some real differences for our students right now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, like we're thinking back to a lot of the time 4 years ago during the pandemic, we couldn't control a lot of the how things turned out and what districts were doing. But I think now 4 years after, how we can really focus on our locus, really, like you said, and stay calm in the midst of stress and situations that maybe not our decision, but being an employee of an organization, right? It's really keeping calm.
One of the
Would,
things that, yeah, and then if I could, Dana, when I
sure.
think about that, because again, it's not that process where you kind of go, just calm down, and you want
Yeah.
everyone to calm down, because that never really helps people.
Hmm.
But, in that process of recognizing the experiences that as individuals we've all gone through, maybe it was a challenge in school. Maybe it
Hmm.
was a challenge in a sports team we played on. Whatever the challenges have been in our lives, sometimes people don't give themselves enough credit. And so in a process, I really like when I have the opportunity to talk to people and I go, maybe you've gone through a couple of similar things. And they kind
Hmm.
of reflect and they go, I have gone through some things. And I said, so you've been resilient. And a lot of people don't give themselves the credit to recognize that fact. When you start to recognize the challenges as an individual that we've been through, you feel a little stronger. You feel a little bit more courageous because you can recognize that. And that's something that can calm a person to their core, right? So
Hmm.
it's like the grounding effect of a child. Why do we sometimes grab a baby and we start rocking? Well, we're helping them to self-regulate a little bit, and that settles things a little bit more than if we're tossing the baby in the air. So we don't want to do that. So, but the calmingness. But that's just a key process in working with people and adults. Most of us have been through challenges, but we have to remember those.
Yeah, yeah. So important. I wanted to shift to you, Holly, about equity. So, working with Foldscope instruments. You have this microscope that people can use. It's made out of paper. You can explain a little bit also when you're answering the question about how it's Foldscope instruments is addressing issues of equity and accessibility in science education.
Yeah, so when you think about science education and you think about learning science, the tools that are involved with science are typically on the expensive side.
Hmm.
And they're also, very technically complex. And so there's, in the way going back to what Dr. Martinez was saying about the calming and like you have to model the behavior that you want your students to have in a science classroom. If you have, for example, and our focus is right now on microscopes, if you have one microscope in your classroom, chances are you might, as the educator, be the only like, okay, we're going to use this, but you have to be very careful with it. And, you have to do it in exactly
Hmm.
this way. And so your, emotions might be a little bit heightened, which makes your students nervous and intimidated to use it. But with Foldscopes, the thing that I love about it is, like you said, Dana, it is a microscope that is made out of paper.
Wow.
So it is something that you can drop it on the ground, you can get it dirty, you can bend it. If it does tear, you can just tape it back together again. So it is something that helps to take away that fear of, oh my gosh, I'm working with something that's really expensive and complicated. It's still a fully functional microscope. It's not a toy.
Hmm.
It does. People sometimes think, oh, that doesn't look like it's real. It is. It can do everything that a light microscope can do. This can do. And the key thing that Foldscope is doing with these products is that we are addressing what I think are two of the really big issues that are barriers to being able to get quality science equipment into the hands of teachers and their students. First one is obviously the cost.
Hmm.
A lot of schools, there are some schools that have money to be able to buy microscopes and, fully stock their labs. But I would say that the vast majority of schools, here in the US and around the world, do not have that kind of money. So we are looking at microscopes that you can buy a classroom set. And we currently have 3 different types of microscopes that we sell. And again, all made out of paper. So you can definitely check out our website, foldscope.com, to learn more about those. But you can get a classroom set. We're talking about 20 microscopes, fully functional microscopes, for your class, for your students for $35. And when you think about the fact that normally one microscope costs hundreds of dollars, now you have the ability to buy one for every student. And it's a piece of technology that, like I said, you can put it in your pocket. Students can take science wherever they are with this. So again, taking care of that cost is a huge barrier that we're helping to address with the equity issue. The other thing that that is kind of a challenge is the accessibility in terms of resources. Because microscopes, they take, normally you have to plug them in, you have to have the bench space, you have to have all the equipment that goes with it. That takes up space. Again, resources in terms of electricity even. We designed Foldscopes so that you don't need anything other than this to be able to do your microscopy. So you could be outside, away from any physical resources or anything like that, electricity, power, and all that, and you can still do microscopy. You can still learn about what is out there in the, in the natural world. So again, that takes care of, the issues with cost and resources, which I think are two very big things that are keeping people from being able to access it, which, then that takes away from the ability to actually be able to experience science, because reading about science in a textbook and doing science, very different things. And unfortunately, a lot of students, the way that they learn about science is by looking at pictures or looking at what other people have done. And when you do that, it separates you from the content, first of all. It makes it feel like you are not necessarily the scientist, because you're learning what real scientists do, and you're not the scientist. You're learning about what they're doing. And that's not what we want at all. And with the ability to be able to have a tool in the hand of every student, now you are empowering them so that they are seeing themselves as scientists. They are doing the actual scientific work. And I think that that's just a huge issue that we're helping to address around the world.
Yeah, and it helps also students who think, they're not able to access like discoveries, right? Out in just on a trail or out in nature or just in their neighborhood, right? They're able to find that discovery wherever. And that, I think that ties a little bit into what Rob wanted to discuss in terms of mindfulness, because when we're out in nature and we're discovering things with insects or leaves, it has a lot about mindfulness and like restorative practices and how students and how we could support our staff and educational community. So what can you talk about, Rob, in terms of mindfulness and supporting coming from that HR standpoint?
Well, and again, from the HR standpoint, working with my entire educational services team, right? Because we develop in California called the LCAP, Local Control Accountability Plan. It's this ginormous plan that helps us figure out how we spend our dollars across the school district. And the district where I'm at, Antioch Unified School District, has one of the most elaborative processes for helping wellness that I think I've ever seen in my 37 years. And they consciously put some programs into place. We have wellness rooms at each of our elementary sites. We have restorative facilitators that are working with our students when they're having issues of concern, of anxiety or frustration or what have you. We have leaders going through training about civility and mindfulness and getting the supports at the school sites. And while we're doing all that for our sense of wellness for our students and our staff and our leaders, we are also continuing to focus on our academic pursuits. And this type of thing, this tool that Holly was talking about, wow, I just see such enormous opportunity for students who have oftentimes been through systems, marginalized or excluded from being able to participate. And it actually got me thinking about one of my sons who's a science teacher, a high school science teacher, and kind of the challenges that he has. And he's kind of one of those, okay, we're going to do a forensic analysis and does CSI crime labs in his room, but having something like this that could get into the hands of students where they're not seeing him be the expert, but they become the expert, are the types of things that we're really looking to do across our students. Because we know by elevating our academic expectations, sometimes people might say, well, gosh, a lot of stress that we're putting on kids. But we have to figure out those ways to actually provide the access, to provide opportunity, so that they're doing things that actually allow them to feel great about science or math or English or writing, whatever it happens to be, that universal design learning where you're like, let me show you what I can learn, rather than you must learn this way.
Sure.
So it's getting back to helping our kids be comfortable, but then giving them the tools where they can really excel differently. You know, I think one of the examples Holly mentioned about seeing the experts, things are moving so fast academically, and whether it's advancements of AI, advancements in just devices, and this is a very simple, it seems like, device that can really propel education forward. Those are the types of things now that our students are going to become the creators. They're going to be the innovators. They're going to be leading us to new places without us having them be led to the trough of knowledge. That's what we knew, right? And we knew it, and it's a history book, and but things are going so fast, and our education systems need to be able to evolve with that, because we're going to create more conflict if we just keep saying they could only learn this much. But if our kids are starting to expand their learning beyond us, we have to be ready to go with them and say, well, you start teaching me what you're learning, because this older folk like myself would be able to say, that's something new I never knew about. And I'll tell you, like the Foldscope, I really didn't even know that myself. So, wow, thank you, Holly, for teaching me something. But those are the kinds of things that our minds need to be ready for holistically across our education system, especially with kids and their learning and their capabilities of picking up AI technology and doing things that we haven't ever thought about before. So,
yeah, no, I definitely think, tying that into some of those mindfulness tools, like you said, and focusing on what students can access. But also, Holly, you mentioned that there are some barriers to science besides just the equity piece. So what are some barriers that Foldscope is helping to remove?
Yeah, so the things that I talked about earlier, those are more I guess you would say more of the tangible things that you can definitely see. Cost is an obvious one, and, just the physical environment that you're in. But there are also barriers that I feel that are internal, that are keeping people from, as I said before, kind of seeing themselves as scientists. And, intimidation of science is a big thing. When I worked with elementary school students, they would come to my classroom like just super excited. They could not wait to see what kind of, basically in their minds, they were probably thinking, what kind of mess are we going to be able to make in Mrs. Stewart's class? Because that's what it was always something hands-on. It was always, they knew that they were going to come to me for a fun science lesson. And then when I moved to from elementary to middle school, it was the elementary school where I was the feeder school for the middle school that I went to. So I had a lot of those same students come through my classroom again. And it was the difference between them from elementary school being like, yay, science, to coming into my classroom as an 8th grader and telling me I'm no good at science. I'm not, I can't do this. And I just was looking at them thinking, this is not the same child who I saw a few years ago. And it really is that I think it's kind of the way that science is taught a lot of times is, there's a lot of memorization of these big words, these complicated words. And like I said, the technology and the tools and the equipment is made to seem so much more complex, and like you have to be scared and kind of wary of it, rather than just let the kids get in there and get their hands dirty and try it out and see what happens. And I think that that's one of the big things with Foldscope, that it allows, I went into a classroom beginning of this year, and the teacher, she wrote me an email, and it really just touched my heart. She said that she really appreciated the way that I kind of helped the kids be fearless with the microscopy. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a great thing, that she saw that, the way that I talked to them and, helped them out and encouraged them. And I told them, if you make a mistake, it's okay. It just means that you just need to make the slide again, or again, if you rip it, you tape it together, that kind of thing. And it made them more willing to want to try it. And, if you're going to try it, and then you get to have those little mini successes that just start to build on one another, and so then they start getting that confidence and thinking, oh my gosh, I can do science. And this is really cool. And it's a lot of fun, and it kind of gets them thinking in a different way. So I think that intimidation is a really big thing. And the ability to give them real science experiences is the other thing that Foldscope does. Because again, there's a time and a place for, toys and games and things like that in a classroom, but there also needs to be a space for doing real work that is related to your content. So the science that you can do with a Foldscope is real science. There are college professors that are using Foldscopes out doing their field work, their research and things like that. This is a real tool, and we're getting this into the hands of elementary school kids. And just imagine how that, like if they get used to it, and then when they get older and someone says, we've got this problem, they have an experience and a resource to be able to draw on and say, oh, well, then we can try this, and they'd be able to run with it rather than being told we have this problem and then being like, well, I have no idea how to solve that. Now they've got these experiences because they've worked with a real actual tool. And Dr. Martinez, I've been like taking notes as you've been talking, because I really feel like the way that you're talking about with things related to resilience and the mindfulness, it also applies to, a lot of what I'm doing with the Foldscopes and the microscopes. Because when you are going outside, even just to saying, you're going to go out and find a sample, you have to slow down. You have to look for these little things that, okay, maybe that would be something I'd want to put under my microscope.
Right.
You really, the things related to mindfulness truly come into play when you're, doing all of this, and the close observations that you have to make, and making those connections as you're looking at something in your microscope and then drawing it in your notebook. That really can give that sense of connectedness to what you're looking at.
Right.
And it helps to slow you down, calm you down, and just, it just brings you, I don't know, I think it just brings me a truly a sense of joy. And I think that that's what I see when I'm working with people and helping them to learn how to use it, that it's joy. It's not, oh gosh, I have to do science. It's, I get to do science,
Yeah, no, I like how you tied those two together in terms of a lot of kids, they come to class, or like you said, the 8th graders, right? They don't think they're good at science anymore. It's a little bit harder than when they were in 2nd or 3rd grade,
Yeah.
but helping them rediscover that love of science. So, so important. Rob, I wanted to ask you about supporting leaders in your district. So what steps have you and your organization taken to support leaders with steering the many groups across your district in terms of resilience, reconciliation, respect, and responsibility?
Yes. So thank you, Dana. And again, thank you, Holly, for your kind words. Part of the process of leadership these days, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
It's a challenge, right? Because as I mentioned earlier, there's so many needs. There's so many people. There's so many pools for what's the big priority. And for our leaders, helping them see that the processes they use, like for greeting people in the morning, sets the day off right. Making sure and being out on the playgrounds and in the lunchrooms and in the classrooms rather than in the office responding to emails. Just simple strategies sometimes can really change the dynamics of what's happening within a school on any given day. The other focus areas that we've talked about with them, and it goes back to some of the things I think Holly was mentioning, kind of the real work, right? What's relevant today? What's relevant for your work with your teachers? What's relevant for the work with the staff? And working on what's really relevant rather than those things that aren't as important for an administrator, for a leader, for a teacher leader to really focus on. So if they're doing those things, if they're helping to bring, and I use this word rigor, and sometimes people go, oh my gosh, hard work. And I say, no, rigor to me is the excitement behind whatever we're doing. It's a high level of participation. It's that rigorous thing. Like when I run a 5K race or a challenge, a Spartan challenge or something, that's rigorous to me, but it's enjoyable. I don't want rigor to be such a challenge that people fall away from it. It's that meeting up to a challenge that's great and fun and wonderful. And the resolve that our kids can have to get through this. Sometimes the resolve of a leader, a principal, and a vice principal getting through that day with some discipline issues, with a teacher conference, with a parent conference, with helping the curriculum go, with getting the right supports and resources. That resolve to make it through, they have to pat themselves on the back. And we, as other leaders across the district, need to recognize those challenges. Not to just cater and say, oh, good job, but to really help them recognize the strengths that they're developing throughout the day. And that's another system that we want to do, is recognize the strengths for our teacher leaders, recognize the strengths being developed in our students. Our students are so magical in what they can accomplish on the daily. And we have to, as teachers, as educators, as our classified support, be able to engage with them. I do this one thing, and I'll just mention it briefly. I won't go into the whole thing. It's called the Power of 12. And I don't know why I made it up that way, but it's basically a process by which I want every one of our people to recognize 2 kids every week or 2 colleagues and just tell them that you saw them help someone's spirit soar. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, you recognize the good thing that they did to somebody else. And then you recognize 3 other people and you tell them that you saw them, lift someone's heart. Okay. And there's this whole process by which you give somebody something to do to recognize somebody else. And we've heard about gratitude, and we've heard about, trying to appreciate people, but it gives you a particular way to go. And I'm going to put a blog out on this that'll give it more specifics, but it's another way that people can work with the people that are in their environment to recognize them. And by recognizing them in an actionable way, we're calling out the good that we're seeing. And far too many times on our education system, we're so quick to see the negative, the discipline problem, the this, the that, and we forget about all the different things that we're going right today. And we have to focus on that. It goes back to using all of the data that we have, not just the one isolated incident, right? In a science world, we want to know what happens all the time, most of the time, not just that one negative opportunity and, oh, that was bad. Okay, but all the good is important. So it's just working to help our people do those types of things, right? Respect, responsibility, focus on the important issues. So
so important. At this time, is there anything else either of you would like to add to our conversation in terms of, leaning into kind of wrapping up our school year and leaning into next school year and building personal resilience and making opportunities out of obstacles?
I'll jump in, Holly, if you don't mind. So again, right now, we're going through our processes of graduations and promotions and celebrations. And, what we also know is that we're continuing our summer programs where fortunately we have, dollars through our state government and our federal government to bring more students back to school, to experience different things over the summer. So we're doing that. And as I mentioned, we're doing our LCAP, which is the set plan for the next 3 years. One of the neat things that we're doing in the district, and I say neat, but it's important, is we're doing an equity audit. at every one of our schools, and we're looking at the actual curriculum pieces. We're looking at the teaching instruction. We're looking at the culture of our district. We're looking at those things that are focused on folding in supports for every one of our students. Yes, LCAP, yes, we focus on parent engagement, but we thought it important to really take a look at this at a very deeper level, knowing that our schools are different, but getting some data, getting that analysis now that's occurring, and helping now fold in specific goals. So again, this is work that's already underway for next year that will feed into our leaders becoming more proficient, feed into the coaching that we want our leaders doing with our teachers, not to our teachers. There's a difference, really with our teachers, and building teacher leaders so that as a community of educators, we're really supporting the systems that are going forward. We had mentioned we have great things, I think, in the wellness arena, but we also need to focus on our access and equity for all of our students to make sure. This is one way that we're doing that. And again, as we focus on the relevant things, I'm hopeful that our schools will continue to evolve and meet the continuing needs that our students have. But it's really focused work. Without a plan, we're all running around doing a lot of things. So we try and make sure that our plan is communicated, is together, is sequential, similar to a science experiment. So
I like the tie into science. That's great.
How about you, Holly? What would you like to add?
Yeah, because I know that, again, like Dr. Martinez was saying, we're at the end of the year, and a lot of times this is when teachers are just, you hear about that teacher tired, and I completely relate. I remember to that. I remember what that felt like, but I also want people to be able to look to the future. And like I said, I know that we have so many products with Foldscope. Please, if you're interested, come to our website. It's foldscope.com. And I think, Dana, you have probably put those links in here somewhere, but foldscope.com. And we have, and we don't want it to be just you buying a product and then, you've got a box sitting somewhere in your classroom that doesn't get opened. We truly are a community that is here to help and support teachers as teachers are working to support their students. We want to make sure that all teachers know, and administrators who are maybe looking to do this school-wide or district-wide, that, we have training programs that we will work with the teachers to make sure that everyone feels comfortable and confident using this tool before rolling it out for your students. We've got, we do in-person options, we do online options. So please just reach out and, if you have any questions about it or anything. And I would just say too, just use the summer as a time to, obviously we talk about, taking the time for yourself, take the time to reflect. And I know that, I'm specifically a science teacher, so that's, probably more who I'm speaking to, but take the time to actually get out there and do some science yourself. If you are teaching these concepts to your students and you're trying to, as you had said, Rob, about the making sure that stuff is relevant, as you are getting outside and you are seeing these natural phenomenon happening, think about ways that you can bring those types of experiences to your students in a way that's different from them just reading about it or looking at pictures of it. And, giving them these hands-on tools is definitely the way to do that. That'll make it relevant to them because they'll be able to go out and explore whatever is around where they are. So yeah, just taking the time to do some science, have fun with doing the science, and just, enjoy the summer in the natural world. That's a big thing.
And if you are going to read a book, well, I hear that the recipe might be an option. I don't know. Just thought I'd toss that in.
Well, yeah, I think this was a good opportunity to have both of you speak on your fields in terms of the resilience piece, the mindfulness piece, but also when we're looking at nature through a microscope and taking time, right, to observe both with our students, but also as adults. And, I think this is a great time of year to really take that pause as we end our school year and go into summer vacation, whatever that looks like for educators listening. Could be in a month from now, but to really reflect on the year, but reflect on also strategies that we can use to be more resilient as we go into next school year. Where can people find you online? I'll start with you, Rob.
Well, so the moniker at Resiliency Guy, you can find me on Facebook, X, LinkedIn, probably TikTok as well. Don't do much there, but I'm out there. And I do have a blog, resiliencyguy.com. You can go there. I have a lot of blog writings that are out there. I'll be writing about the power of 12 and have it more put together for you, that idea. It's just a nice way to, again, engage. But you can find me all over the place. And yeah.
And Holly, I know you've mentioned the Foldscope website. What is your personal social media handle?
Yeah, so mine's written right on the screen there. It's at Holly A. Stewart. And for those of you who might be, I don't know if anybody's listening, not watching, but it's Stuart is how you spell my last name. So, but at Holly A. Stewart is where you can find me across all social medias. And if you have any, like I said, please reach out if you have any questions about the products or anything like that. And then you can definitely always go to foldscope.com, and my email is holly@foldscope.com. So that should be easy to remember as well. But yeah, definitely keep checking our website because we do have new products that we are working on. I'll kind of hold up one. This is a microscope. It is actually a microscope, but it's a projector. So wow. It's a really neat way to think about being able to see the microscopic world and share it immediately with everyone around you. So just another tool that is in the works right now. And I do have blogs too. So I write for Foldscope. I have a blog called Foldscope Explores that is just me going out, literally what it sounds like, me going outside, finding something interesting and writing about it and sharing the pictures that I take with the Foldscope. And then there's another one called Foldscope in the Classroom. And that can give you some ideas for how to use the Foldscope in the classroom. And also I try to make sure that it includes interdisciplinary ways to use the Foldscope. So it's not just science content. It really does show how science is everywhere, whether you're connecting it to social studies, math, ELA, art, all of it can come together in one unique project. So yeah, those are two blogs that I write. But yeah, reach out to me at any time. I'm happy to talk and geek out over science stuff with anybody.
Well, thank you both so much for being my guest today on the 300th episode of Out of the Trenches.
This is very exciting, Dana. I'm so happy for you.
Wonderful.